Good evening, everyone. I'm Temma Kramer. I'm professor of film here in the Cinema and Television Arts Department, and I'm really happy to be invited because I think this is a great idea, that there's community here. And filmmaking is the most collaborative of all the art forms, and it makes particular sense, I think, for there to be a film community. The whole business is paradoxical, you know. To work in this way, you must be independent, you must be an individual, you must have your ideas. Yet, you have to be an absolute servant to the material and to your colleagues. You have to have extraordinary communication skills. You'll be everything from the tyrant to the jackass to the comedian to the therapist to fill in the blank. Because when a film is made, as you're beginning to experience, it is a small community, a small universe. Because the director is the overview, the coordinator, the backbone, really, to the whole picture. The director can't walk from here to there without someone coming up and asking a question. The prop person comes up with a tray of handguns. The scene calls for the character to take a gun and go, boom. Which gun? Does it make a difference? And the director needs to look at this tray of guns offered by the prop person to say, that one is too big for this actor's hands, it'll look funny. This one is too expensive, the character could never afford it. This one, it's too shiny, I think it'll it's supposed to be hidden, and if it's too shiny, we'll see it too soon. That one, that's the right one right there. And all that thought process has gone through in an instant because the director has an understanding of all of these things inherently because they've been thought through. Many people are drawn to the idea of being a director out of some need to self-express. Okay. And there's a problem that can come up. It's when self-expression really is serving a therapeutic function of asserting oneself in the world. Okay. And the truth is there's a lot of overlap between art and therapy, folks. There really is. Art is therapeutic for whole communities, for individuals, people experiencing it, people doing it. But when the art becomes therapy, it becomes very self-referential and ends up being a bloody bore to everyone, and nothing ends up working anyway. Okay. All of us have to be aware of that, even though it might not be the most pleasant or comfortable thought to have. Because self-awareness and the beginning of that process is the key to finding your voice. Beginning filmmakers often begin making films in a genre that they find particularly attractive or engaging, you know. And that's great, and you can learn your craft, and you should do it on something that you're drawn to. But if you think about it, if you're asked about it, you don't want to just become a really expert imitator of something that pre-exists. Yes, you might use it as a tool, but the point is, what is your point of view in the world? What is your interest? What do you have something to say about in the world? Or let's say you don't have the answer, like most of the world, but you know what the questions are, and you want to grapple with the possibilities. Some fabulous directors have only one story to tell, but they mine the material of that story interestingly and endlessly. And of course, Woody Allen comes to mind. You know, and we can name many others. So the real challenge is not to become a a technical expert, although technical excellence is expected. It's just expected. It's no big deal. It's just expected. The real question is why is your movie going to be different than your movie on the same topic? Because guess what? Essentially, there are no new stories, but there is point of view. And it's point of view that changes and is different and will change in your own lifetime as you experience life. Okay, your attitudes at one stage of life might be quite different than at another. And you're exploring the same material at different points in your life is going to yield different material. Okay, because you're changing. But this all presupposes reflection and insight, which doesn't come easily. It requires some form of reflection, and it's helpful to build some kind of reflective process into your life. Some people write journals, and that's really easy for them. Other people, they just, kills them to write a journal. Somehow it's not their cup of tea. If that's you, then I suggest taking the newspaper and just grabbing a photograph that strikes you, or an art article, and just collect them after a while and then start sorting them according to categories. Go to the library and get newspapers from 50 years ago and see what some of the issues were there. And then sometimes the distance helps us see what interests us. So I think the idea really is to find your own voice, which is easier said than done. There are people who are 50 years old who haven't quite figured this out yet, okay? And there are people who are in their 20s who have remarkable insight. I've made the comment that art and therapy sometimes overlap, but they're not the same, and art should not be therapy. And here's the reason why. Because to be a good storyteller and to tell a story fully, you need the distance to see and understand all the characters. When you're engaged in some dilemma yourself, let's say you've got a sister who's been picking on you since you've been 3 years old, all right, for some reason. And this is a family dilemma, and it's just this, kind of sibling, and it's just, If you're in the midst of it, you cannot see your sister's point of view. And as a storyteller, you need to. You need to see, understand, not necessarily go into agreement, okay? But understand from a human level what's happening. Or else how do you help the actor or the actress doing that part find the subtext and do it believably? A very good exercise is find someone or something that you just really, really like, and then examine that person for their flaw. Or find someone that just is really obnoxious, you don't like, they're horrible, whatever, and look for a strength. Because as a storyteller, you need to know who the bad guy is, who the antagonist is, what their motivation is, what there is that's human about it. And filmmaking and storytelling is all about being human. And that's why it's this great thing that you never fully figure out, because you keep getting to get older like I'm getting older and keep finding out new things and explore. It's wonderful. It makes life very interesting. It's a fantastic pursuit. But it requires some commitment of reflection in your life, or finding some way to deal with ideas before you deal with that outline. Have you ever had the experience of someone says, okay, sit down now and be creative, right? Usually what plugs in is you want to perform. You want to come up with a great idea. You want to do it really good. You want to be really original. And that's the wrong side of your brain to be coming out of. The place that comes out of is reflection, musing. keeping those journals and going back and seeing patterns, collecting images or stories and categorizing them, going through them and seeing patterns. So when it comes time to, okay, I want to sit down now and see if I have a story to tell, you go back to that material and you remind and refresh yourself. So it isn't like you have to perform now, it's you're just engaging in the process that's already underway. Another thing to do in this creative process is to make a whole bunch of films. You know, where you're not ego invested. Say, okay, every week we're going to make a 2-minute film, that's it. Everybody change roles, that's it. You know, absolutely. So you get to be fluid in your expression and your collaboration. And by the way, not every person is meant to work with every other person. One of the things you do in a community like this and in film school is you find the people with similar work ethics, similar resonances, you know, and that's who you end up forming your teams with, okay? You should be able to work with most anyone. Ideally, you're going to try to work and find a core, a real collaborative core. And if someone irritates the heck out of you, you know, and you just, it's like, don't work with them. Life is short, all right? But if you're a director, you are sort of obliged to take care of everyone. I think a director is a servant to the material, a servant to the crew and the other artists that there's collaboration, and a servant to someone else. It's the audience, as well as the director's point of view. I'm not using the word vision. There's a difference between vision and point of view. Vision is vague. Vision is in your head and no one else can see it. And if it inspires you and focuses you, great. But point of view suggests that it is a point of view, not the total view. And it suggests the unifying function of the director's point of view. David Mamet has written a book on directing, which I recommend you read. And he says that basically the director's primary job is to make the shot list, because you were creating the juxtaposed images that are going to tell the story in a cinematic way. And he's referring back to the Eisenstein theory of montage. Okay. So according to Mamet, once the shot list is made, most of the work is over. You've hired actors who are capable, right for the part. You're not their acting coach. You know, you're there to be helpful to them. You know, help them be natural and simple. And basically, you've got your, the shot list. You collaborated in advance with the production designer and the cinematographer. And the task is, well, let's get this shot. No mystery, no confusion. There are other directors that work in very different ways, but you might be surprised. John Cassavetes. And if you don't know his name, I recommend that you inquire. He is an independent filmmaker. He just recently died. He had a group of actors which he worked with over and over again. One of whom was his wife, very talented Jenna Rowland. And Cassavetes' work has an incredible improvisational quality to it, except that if you talk to him and read about how he works, he does indeed improvise, but then he goes back and writes it down. And in fact, everything you see is scripted, and it has the most improvisational quality, but it comes out of improvisational work with the actors. That's how he works. That's not how Hitchcock worked. Hitchcock was a production designer and an artist. And his storyboards, the picture was totally shot before he walked on. It was all over before he walked on the set. Every frame exactly was preset. A director must have a good knowledge of all of the materials of production. And rather than being in competition with your cinematographer or your editor. You want to hire people who know more than you do, you can take all the credit for their good work. You want them to be so brilliant. But that first conversation you have about what the material is about determines whether you use this brilliant cinematographer or that one. You can have a brilliant cinematographer that's all wrong for this material or what it is that you want to see in this material. Your point of view in the material. It says, become a good leader. And what is a good leader? It's someone who liberates the best from people around them. What do you do with a temperamental actor who's so full of it? That's really talented. Okay. Sometimes you yell at that person. Sometimes you buy him a beer. Sometimes you have to listen to him about his ex-wife. Sometimes you just simply need to listen to that person. I'm not going to punch him. But you're serving the material. What's going to work? And this doesn't mean you're there to be pleasant to everyone, to not take exception. You're there to protect the rest of the set and crew as well. And sometimes temperamental, self-indulgent people can do damage and take advantage of others around them. You're there to protect everyone. You're there to protect the work. If you want to be a professional, start acting like one. You know? Be in professional settings. Put yourself in that place. Filmmaking, one of the most eclectic, collaborative art forms. And here at the university, as you're required to do your GE requirements, you're kind of pushed into experiencing things you might not have ordinarily gone to experience on your own. And it's broadening, it's enriching, and I'm telling you that it will make you a better filmmaker because you'll understand the world, not deeply, but in an overall way, that when it comes time to do a picture, you can then immerse yourself. So I think I really, see, well, sure, she thinks film schools are great. Why wouldn't I, right? I think being here in an academic setting and having the GE requirements and that broad exposure is healthy for you just as human beings, okay? But as filmmakers as well. Because you're going to need not in-depth knowledge about everything, but you're going to need broad sensibilities, which you can then investigate as the opportunity or the material presents itself. And that's half the fun. You know, every time you're doing a movie, it's learn something new.